Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, I am under a truck. This is our Chevy Silverado, and we saw last segment that it has an extended crank. That means it takes forever to start this thing. And we suspected a bad crank position sensor, but we wanted to bring it in just to be sure. Now, we got it up on the lift. If you have a Magic Creeper, you can do it in your driveway at home. All you have to do to get to that crank position sensor is remove the starter. So we just removed the 2 bolts to get the starter out of there. It was a little hard to wrench the starter out of the way, but we did it. So then that reveals the crank position sensor. You pull off the connector, 1 bolt to take out the crank position sensor. We got it removed, and we are ready to check out the sensor to see what we've got.
Well, I'll tell you what, you made short work of that, Dave. And you know, the tendency is just to put a sensor in there and make sure it's good, but you had to pull a whole starter, and maybe it's even worse than that. Maybe you have to pull a whole bunch of stuff. So why not do some circuit testing? Here on Tech Garage, we're all about flow charts. We're all about diagnosing it, doing it right. So let's get started, man. First thing we need to do is look at the schematic, and you guys can look at it with us right there. Just like we said, it's a 3-wire sensor. Coming down on the purple and white wire. Do you have a purple and white wire there, Dave?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. Well, that's going to be the 5 volts, and then then you have a white with the black wire.
Yep, got one of those too. That's a good sign.
Perfect. That's the return going up. And then we should have a gray with a black stripe.
It's dirty, but I'm going to call it gray and black, and that's the one in the middle.
Well, that's a good thing. So far, our wires are right and our schematic's right.
Well, what if we didn't have the right wires here?
Great question. If you don't have the right wires or you don't have the right schematic, back up and punt. Don't just go in there and start poking wires. You could short a computer. You could do a lot of damage to the system. So just go get a right schematic, or make sure you figure out what's going on with your wire harness.
Something's wrong. There's so many electronics in today's car, so you don't want to mess with anything if you don't have to.
Yeah, don't poke if you don't know what you're poking. That's for sure when it comes to these terminals. But this one has a flow chart. And you know, Dave, we're all about flow charts because that's going to tell us the integrity of the circuit going from the sensor to the computer. Let's just say, for example, this one's not a sensor. Boy, that's a big problem. Then you have to start chasing the wire harness problems. And this one's pretty simple here. It's just basically going to check for the good continuity from the wire, make sure it's not grounded, make sure we got 5 volts, make sure it's not shorted, and then we'll go in and we'll actually look at the sensor itself. So this is pretty cool. So let's follow this step by step. You guys join us. We got one of our master techs up there, Trip, and he's going to actually run the key for us so we can do it in the proper sequence. And we'll start with number 1. Ignition off, disconnect the harness. We got that done. We're going to test for less than 1 ohms from the actual crank position sensor, low reference terminal to B to ground. So if you go to the actual, let's see, we're going to the gray with the black wire.
Yeah, that's the one in the middle.
And Trip, if you turn the key off so we don't have anything for ohms of resistance.
We should add, by the way, that we disconnected the battery before removing the starter.
Excellent point.
Important step.
And then we went ahead and reconnected it, and we actually taped up the wire harness just to be safe because we reconnected the battery. We don't want any arcs or fire. That's a bad thing. Dave, we'll go ahead and get started, man. We want to go ahead and check the actual ground circuit. So we're looking for a resistance problem on the ground circuit. So it wants us to actually turn the ignition off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go between crank position sensor, low circuit reference, and ground. So if you go to the gray and black, and Trip, if you'd be so kind to turn the key off. So we got the key off, and I'll switch our meter over to ohms of resistance.
Okay, there we go.
There
now we
go.
got to find ground?
You got to find a ground, probably a good bolt where the starter went in. That would be a good ground.
Should be nice and clean.
Yep. Get your ground there, and it's going to flick around. I know it's not going to be easy to find a ground, but once you do, and the car times out here in a minute, we got all the power off the harness.
Okay,
so you got, there you go. There you go. Oh, there it's dropping down a little bit. And there it goes.
Yeah,
bingo. Look at that, 0.3. And it wants 1 or less. So we're in. Now, if it was high, that means there's resistance in that wire harness. We would have to go check that. Not a problem. Next one, we'll go ahead and cycle the key back on. Trip, thank you so much. What we're doing now is we're looking for actual 4.8 to 5.2 volts on the 5-volt reference. Remember that reference coming in on that board?
Yep.
That it was actually pulsing? Our truck's doing the exact same thing. So in order to do that, we're going to have to go between C and ground. So let's go between that purple and white and the gray and black, but let's not let those
Don't let them touch, because
don't let them touch. Yeah, we're creating our own short.
We
don't want to do that.
Nope.
So we'll get that one there, and that should be about 5 volts.
All right, let's take a look.
We're using the sensor ground, so we know we're good. Look at 5
Bam.
volts exactly.
Yes,
good.
sir.
Now, if that was more, you'd be shorted to power somewhere in that wire harness. Not a good thing. Less would be a resistance problem in that wire harness. Okay, so we're good there. Now we got to do is just test the sensor out.
All right.
So if you take that old sensor, you put it on there. We'll show you a trick. And I can go over here to the active counter. We're already set up here, hopefully. Dave, if you just wave it across the new one, we should get some numbers up here. Let's see. Oh, there it goes. Look at that. Check it out. Man, we wouldn't get any counts before. 3, 4, go faster. High speed. Man, nice job. Look at that.
There we go.
All right. Well, now all we have to do is just basically reverse the procedure. Go ahead, put that in.
Disconnect the battery.
Yeah, that's right. Get the starter hook back up. That would be great. Well, hopefully that extended crank is gone. You guys don't want to miss that. But before we get to that, we're actually going into Garage Edge. So we'll be right back with more Tech Garage brought to you by RockAuto.com.